Okay. Um, Moonbeam. As always, got some notes on the screen. I will post these through. They're really jumbled up because my mind was just working about 100 miles an hour in terms of what I wanted to try and get down. So I'll tidy them up and I will put them out. So if you see me looking over here, it's just because I'm referring to my notes as well as everything else. But I think most people in the community know that I'm a big fan of the Polkadot ecosystem. I'm a big holder of Dot. I was a big holder of Dot in the last bull run, and I plan to be in this one. The difference between the last bull run and this bull run is now the parachains are up and running. And so we've got an ecosystem in which we can also invest in. And the parachains effectively started back end of 2021. So right at the height of the bull market, although we'll go into it, Moonbeam won the second parachain auction, which was sort of end of November 2021. And that effectively gives it permission to lease, in inverted commas, access to the relay chain. The relay chain is what the Polkadot ecosystem is effectively built off for a period of 2 years. They can extend it if they want to, and I'm sure they will. Effectively access for 2 years to build out their product, their project, and then effectively run it. And I'm not going to bother going into how the parachains worked or sort of the auction or whatever. All I'll say is that typically, because it is relevant to when we talk about tokenomics, you get access to the parachain for 104 weeks, so effectively 2 years. As I say, you can renew it. They were done on crowd loans. So what would happen is you got a couple of projects that would bid for each of the parachain slots in the auction. It was done by I don't know what they call it, like a candle auction. So effectively the auction ran for a week, but you didn't know, but at some point the candle was extinguished. It was based on a 17th century English way of carrying out auctions. They just let a candle burn itself out. And when it did, the auction ended. What it does, it discourages people from waiting to the end and just like spam bidding. You have to get your bids in, and then whenever that time went out, you didn't know about till after the 7 days, but then retrospectively go back and go, oh, by the way, it finished on day 4. Who was the highest bidder at day 4? You're the one that won it. Even if you put in a higher bid after that, it didn't matter. I believe it's fairer. Doesn't really matter. That's how it went about. But they would go around getting support for their project, and Moonbeam was a very popular one. It was, a shoe-in to absolutely win. It had a huge support for it, and I was really geared up to put some funds into the Moonbeam parachain. I didn't in the end, and thank God that I didn't. We didn't know it was going to be the end of the bull run at the time, but Dot was at about $50 a time, and it was alleged originally that the return was going to be, for every Dot invested, you'd get 150 glimmer back, which sounded very appealing. However, when you got closer and closer to time, it was 1 and 5. And I just thought, I'm not locking up my funds for 2 years for just 5 glimmer. So I didn't, and I sold all my Dot. And it was a very handsome trade that I made. I foolishly put most of that back into something else later on because I didn't know it was the end of the bull run. But, I'm glad that I didn't lock it up, given where Dot is now and also where Moonbeam is. Anyway, so as I said, Moonbeam came about, and let me try and find the actual dates. I didn't put it down. Oh yeah, I did. It just says end. Yeah, won the second parachain the end of November 2021, and the crowd loan raised effectively $1 billion worth of Dot was locked up for the community to use. So what does Moonbeam do, and why effectively do I like it? Okay, so Moonbeam is a blockchain protocol. It's designed to effectively be fully compatible with the likes of the Ethereum ecosystem. I'll kind of break down how that works a little bit later on. But as someone just put in one of the comments, Ethereum, it's a very expensive ecosystem. It's very expensive to transact upon. And so the fact that Moonbeam can offer complete interoperability, versatility, and just a quick, cut, copy, and paste over onto the Moonbeam without having to change any of the coding or the programming from whatever you're bringing over, the fees are considerably less. And so that's one of the main attractions, I suppose, for it, and one of the things why they think they'll get some usability from that. Anyway, it was set up and it is run by a company called PureStake. The CEO of that is a guy called Derek Yu. I'm just jumping about a bit here, but so this is PureStake, elevated blockchain. They don't just do Moon River. They have a history of building out networks and protocols, blockchain technology. Here is the team. I'm not going to bother going through the full team. You can have a look on the website yourself. They are based out of Boston, and obviously that's very close to MIT. I am not saying that that is an advantage or necessarily a disadvantage, but it does seem like a lot of the engineers, the software engineers, come from MIT. The reputation I understand of MIT, it's a very good school, and so hopefully they're getting a good caliber of people working within it. As I say, Derek has been with the company since the beginning. He has a decent amount of history in other blockchain related companies, and yeah, he's suitable for the part. Messages up, and then you can have a look at PureStake as well. I just had a look. Apparently there's 32 employees registered on LinkedIn that currently work there at the moment. However, the data is only back to the middle of 2022, so we don't know where that really sits at the moment. But going back to Moonbeam itself, so I wrote some notes down here, thinking I was being really clever with what it does. And I think I've really gone and confused myself by writing it. But I'm going to read what I wrote, and then we'll go from there. But Moonbeam's main aim is to create that interoperable blockchain ecosystem based on how can I put it? Cross-chain, cross-chain and interoperability kind of features and applications that work effectively in unison. That work in unison to deliver solutions for, I don't know, I mean, we'll have a look at the moment, but DeFi, they've got DEXs, NFTs, explorers, wallets, all sorts. So they've got about 100 protocols, 100 plus protocols on it at the moment. It is still growing. I put plenty of charts. Bijan's done a few himself of sort of the developer activity on both the Moonbeam and the Kusama or Moon River network. But this is where I wrote the actual notes because there were so many different things here. But effectively, these 100 plus protocols integrate bridges, oracles, dApps, DeFi components, explorers, storage providers, and Web3 wallets, all with the access to and communication with the various ecosystems linked with Moonbeam. And when we talk about ecosystems linked with Moonbeam, yes, obviously we're talking about Polkadot. We're also talking about Ethereum, but we're talking about Solana. We're talking about even Bitcoin. So it's very adaptable, and I often think of it as if you're a Trekkie out there, the universal translator. So I mean, it doesn't work for absolutely everything, but generally, you plug in what you think is gobbledygook data, it will churn it into something that can then work on an Ethereum compatible smart contract. And it uses this thing called an EVM, which is, we talked about it last week with Near Protocol, the Ethereum virtual machines. I'm going to try and get into a bit of the techie side now. I don't understand this because I am just not coded minded. So let me just find where I wrote the notes on it. And then we can go from there. Where did I write the notes? Okay, so apparently it's built off the Substrate framework using Rust as a coding tool, I presume. I'd say it doesn't really mean much to me, but a lot of people seem to think that's a big positivity and provides that versatility that we were talking about. This actually makes it compatible with the EVMs that I mentioned. So those virtual machines we talked about. And for anyone that uses Solidity, again, I presume that's some form of coding or programming. Apologies for any coders or programmers in there that know what I'm talking about. So the compatibility with the EVM allows Ethereum-based functionality on the Polkadot system. I'm going to kind of go through the website in a moment. I'm just jumping through all my notes. It provides, that's it, this streamlined process for the developers. So if they want to redeploy those programs or those contracts that we talked about, whether that be through Solidity, whether it be through the EVMs, it can do that on the network. It can just effectively plug and go. Let's have a look. Okay, let's have a look at the website. So I actually kind of like the website. It has been improved over the last year, which is good to see, and we'll have a look at what the app looks like as well. a little bit later on, but it's pretty clean in terms of what you want to do. Everything's in. I mean, who cares about the coloring? It's not really for me, but everything stands out. It's clean. It's not too overcrowded. You do get into the documentation a little bit later on, which makes it quite overcrowded, and it just goes through what it is. I think the different sectors are labeled quite well. So at the moment we're in the builders, and this is now talking about, this is where I got some of the information from, how you can become a builder, how you can start developing products on there. So we talked about that cross-chain connected applications for blockchains like Ethereum, Cosmos, Avalanche, Polkadot. It is proof of stake, and it's built on that substrate, which I mentioned. Someone in here is going to know far more about that than I do. If you're into that kind of stuff, this just goes into a lot of the detail about how you can do it, and there's an application process that you can go through, and blah blah blah. Into the documentation itself, so it's pretty just click and go. There's obviously sections down here. If you want to do a bit more focus on the builders, you can just go through what it is. So the cross-chain interoperability, talk about the XC20s, which is effectively how anything that's on the Polkadot talks to an ERC20 token. For those of you that are not particularly aware of what an ERC20 token is, but you've heard of it, they're ones that are built off the Ethereum blockchain, ERC20. There is an ERC721. Someone might correct me on that as well. So yeah, so you can go through that. You can talk about nodes, how you run a node, how you become a validator or a collator, stuff. Tokens, we're going to go into the tokenomics a little bit later, but this is more about what the token is, how it works, and what you can do with it. So yeah, so the document side of things, this is where the more of the detail is. We're going back onto the actual website. In the community, you can have a look at the projects that it's in. I'm just going to scroll to the top, and then we'll sort of work our way down. I'll talk about the difference between Moonbeam and Moonriver in a moment. But some of these you may not know, some of them you will. Some of them are not actually crypto projects. They're the underlying company that is building off those. But there are some in here that you've probably heard of. Asta's another Polkadot parachain. So Sfala, that's for sort of cloud storage. Osmosis is a decentralized exchange. Have a look. So Fearless is a wallet. Beanswap's another exchange. I'm just scrolling, trying to find some big names now. Curve Finance is on there. Let's have a look if there's anything else. Beefy Finance, some of us might have used that in the DAO days, in the DeFi days. Ethereum Scan, obviously, you can have a look and follow transactions on there. The wallets are all on here. I don't know where they are, but they're somewhere in here. But as you can see, there's an awful lot. MetaMask is there, Chainlink is there, Equilibrium is there. Right, it's starting to get to one. Band is there. So yeah, starting at the ones that we know. Just okay. But then there's also sort of the DeFi ecosystem that we've got here, and this sort of probably they're all the same, but it puts it under the hats that you can see. So you can actually see that this is being developed upon. There are protocols and projects that are out there that are working, and that's what you want to see. This is only a year old, and we've already got all of these partnerships, these relationships, and these products being built off that. And they're covering, sectors which were one big 12 months ago, but are certainly going to be big going forward. And I think one of the ones that's really going to lead the charge in the next bull run is going to be DeFi, with regulation coming and with the lack of trust in centralized exchanges and CeFi. DeFi is going to be a really big area, and this is by no means a large representation of DeFi, but it's good to see that they have already started developing that and how that's going to come out. So again, I'm very positive about what Moonbeam is going to do. But for the vast majority of you, you don't really actually care about Moonbeam. What you care about is the tokenomics and the price of its token and what that token actually is. And so we'll have a look at that. So Moonbeam has a token, and its token is called Glimmer, or represented as GLMR. So that is the utility token, as I said here, from the Moonbeam network. I always get really nervous when someone talks about a utility token, because every crypto seems to have a utility token, and 9 times out of 10, they don't need one. So what does this token do? Why is it a little bit different? So, well, I can scroll down. So it allows for on-chain governance. So there is kind of like that DAO side of things. It is proof of stake, but there is some decent. Well, there is decent. I've got to be careful what I say here. Some people feel that it is centralized because obviously so much of it is locked up. But actually, by locking up your tokens, you get voting rights, and depending on how many tokens you have, depends on how big a voting right you have. It's a bit like how it was back in the DAO days. So yeah, for on-chain governance, for network transactions, which is important for gas metering, and for the security. So it's not just for transactions, which is good to see. Although we know that we've got a vibrant ecosystem, so this is the most important one, having a token that is doing the transactions. Just going back up to where it is here. So the Genesis token supply. So the original total token supply was 1 billion tokens. However, it has an annual inflation rate of 5%. And when we go and have a look at the tokenomics in a moment, where we can see that we've already moved across from that. But there is a burn mechanism within that. And so that gives it the capability of becoming deflationary. Gives it the capability of becoming deflationary. So every time a transaction happens, a fee is paid. Of that fee, 80% of that is burnt. And then 20% goes to the treasury, and they use that however they need to use that. The only way that this will become deflationary is if the amount of transactions is greater than, well, it's actually, if it's a 5% increase, it's going to have to be 6% great, because only 80% of it gets burned. So it's greater than 6% of the inflation rate. So they've got some work to do on that, but it is a relatively new project. This is not unusual to see that amount of uncapped inflation, but also this mechanism. But there is potential for it to be deflationary, which is good. That's what we want to see. It says anticipated launch. It did launch in January 2022, I think. It might be in February 2022. We'll have a look at all-time highs and everything else a little bit later on. This is where we talk about the allocation of the tokens. And whilst I like how transparent this has been, it actually is a little bit worrying as well, and potentially one of the negatives that we need to think about. So all 1 billion tokens have been allocated, and they have been broken up in this pie chart here. And now it's just a case of the speed in which they get released. And you can see some large percentage, seed funding, 14%, strategic funding, 12%, take flight community events. They were like, again, people who were right back at the beginning of it. So probably members of the team, nearly 10%. The crowd loan itself got 15%. We know that they're locked up for 196 weeks. So just with that, when Moonbeam or any project won a parachain, 30% of whatever tokens you were going to get, you got issued immediately, and the remaining 70% were locked up for 96 weeks. So 30% were dumped on the market immediately, and the remaining 70% of that 150 million will be released around about October of this year. So that's something that we need to bear in mind. We've got the bond funding, reserve, we've got the treasury, which feels like it's a bit of a team, long-term protocol and ecosystem development. That's going to be held by the team because it's the long-term management of it. And then we've got key partners and advisors. The whole point I'm trying to say is it does feel like you could have actually just broken this down into those that supported the crowd loan and those that were part of the team. And then when you look at the vesting schedules, yes, they've all pretty much end after 2 years, which is great, but they started from within the first 2 months of it launching. So they were quite quick at trying to get rid of these tokens, which initially sucks if you held the token. And I'll be honest, I was buying to start off with. So, we'll have a look at the price in a moment, what that did to it. But I was, buying tokens were getting unlocked at a very regular basis, putting more supply on the market. If it wasn't the demand for that, you can imagine what happened to the price. And especially in a bear market, that's exactly what did happen. So it's great that they've been transparent, but it still feels like an awful lot was originally held by team members. But we're going to have a look at where that currently sits now. I've used this website a few times. It's called Token Unlocks. I've posted it in the group. I'll post it in again. But this, let's just duplicate that. So this is what it looks like originally. So it just lists all the tokens, and then it gives like the ones that are closest to unlocks. and you can just click on all of them and it'll tell you, but it gives a little countdown. So we know that Ulia has another token unlock of 0.4% or nearly $900,000 worth in 2 hours time. And you can just go through. We can see that Moonbeam has another unlock in 10 days. It's approximately 1% or $4.2 million worth. So obviously it's got a market cap at the moment of about 420 million. So, you know, that could, again, if there's no demand for buying it up, could cause the price to continue to fall. But if we go back into the Glimmer token, there's a few things that I want you to have a look at here. So total locked up, there's actually only 25%, 26% of the total locked up value still remaining to go. So they have actually done an awful lot of the unlock or what will be unlocked already, which is good because we, or vast majority of you, may not have invested in this yet. And so it's had the majority of the downward pressure already and prices significantly suppressed. That's good to see. As I say, it unlocks in 10 days. I want to have a look at this vesting schedule. Whenever I put my cursor over it, though, that happens. So it's pretty annoying. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at this one, which isn't great, but this gives you a bit of a visual representation of all of those token unlocks. Every time this steps up is more tokens being hit onto the market. And we currently stand at just under 600 million out of the 1 billion, which actually doesn't tie in with what? Because that would say that we're about only 60%. This is saying we're at 76 has been unlocked. So there's a bit of disparity there, but we do have a circulating supply of just under 600 million. So we will go with around about 60%. But what you can see, and I will just hold it over just briefly so I can see, but come the 15th of October 2023, so this year, we will have unlocked 90% of all tokens. And then after that, we're effectively in the realms of just the inflationary rate. And so that worry that I had that the vast majority of the team held a lot of the tokens, well, they did. And they are dumping them quickly onto the market. But we're not bag holders. We didn't actually get involved in the parachains. We weren't buying these at $50 a dot to only get 5 back, effectively working out at what? $10 a Moonbeam, you know. It's under a 20th of that at the moment. And we don't know where the price is going to go this year. But it does present us with a good opportunity for anyone that wants to get in the next bull run to get a very good price with not that much of the token supply still left to be dropped on us. And so that is a positive thing. It's already out there. People are owning it. Now, a lot of it is getting locked up and staked, and a lot of that 5% that is produced each year does go for stake and rewards. So there is still that dilution. What we need to see is the ecosystem picking up, the network transactions happening, and the burn rate increasing. Why do I say that? Well, if we go to Moonbeam at the moment, it's been around for a year. So it's no longer a billion. It's had one round of 5% because it was a billion. We knew that was going to be 50 million. 50 million's worth of, actually, it's just been just over a year, to be fair. 50 million new tokens. Well, we're at 46, so we've burned roughly 4 or 5 million of that in transaction fees. So about a tenth where we need to be. So there's definitely room to move, but at least we are burning some. We just haven't taken it to a deflationary level yet. What else do I want to say about Moonbeam? Oh yeah, let's have a look at the actual. Let's just get it on the proper chart, shall we? Bear with me. Let's get to a clean one. Sorry there. Portfolio, Glimmer. Okay, let's get this on the 3-day chart time frame. So Glimmer was effectively conceived and then born in the bear market. And so all it's known is a bear market. And we have seen that suppression of the price as the token released and just interest in cryptos in general waver quite significantly. Now, on the day of launch, it at some stage got up to $50. I mean, people were just probably just dumping their tokens as quick as they can. So I kind of ignore that. I'm not really interested in that spike up there. I kind of take its price from around about April time. And so I'm going to use it 5% as its all-time high. Now it's fallen significantly from then, and again, we're less than a tenth of that price now. But with the rest of the crypto market, what we have seen, to be fair to it, is a break around about a similar time um, to everything else, beginning of the year. After that double bottom, and it started to form. And we're going to go into this in detail. If I drop it onto the daily chart, we can say there is a break. Well, there's not actually. No, we can't say that. It's not done the same. But we're starting to potentially form higher lows and higher highs. What we need is, although this spiked above it, it didn't close above it. So we really need to see this next leg up, take out the November FTX, and then we might be convinced it's coming. Unfortunately, timing is against it. We know that we've got another 900,000 tokens effectively getting dumped onto the market in 10 days' time. So, that could then just cause the price to go down. I have been buying this recently. I've been buying it for probably the last month now, and I held a decent amount of it. I split it over about 3 wallets just because I stake it all, and I don't want to stake it all with one particular collator. But this is what the wallet looks like. And it just is a fairly simple wallet, really. So I've got in this wallet about 7,250 Glimmer. That's staked, so it's no longer sat in my wallet. The remainder I've got in my wallet is just to cover fees. It's down here. And then the stake and rewards, they basically come out 4 times a day, and they just tell you how much it is around there. When I first started taking this last year, I was getting about 33%. I'm getting about 11% now, and that's just going to gradually decrease over time. That's just the way it is. But I'm quite happy with the amount that I've got, just sitting there, just getting the stake and rewards on that. I imagine I'll be holding this now for 12, 18, 24 months. I'm just going to let that compound up within that. But this is what the app looks like. If you want to get to it, I've lost it now. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, you just go to launch app, and you connect your MetaMask wallet or whatever it is, and then you go from there. So that's kind of it for Moonbeam. Oh no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not it at all. Apologies. Let's have a look. Just trying to see markets that it's available on. It's available just about everywhere. Binance, KuCoin, Kraken, OKX, Gate, Huobi, Crypto.com. So yeah, it's widely available in a lot of the big ones. Got a decent amount of volume, about $10 million worth of volume. I've never had a problem getting an order filled. I just use Binance for mine. So look, we've gone through vesting periods. It's ranked 145 on CMC. That might change. That's still 145. Socials. So it's got a very active social community. If we just go back onto here, Twitter, I think it's got about 300,000 followers on Twitter. 287,000 followers on Twitter. It's got a Discord. They said Discord's probably got about 12,000 in there. Some really useful information. It's very interactive. There's a lot of good stuff that comes from this. These guys are posting a lot. It's very much about what's going on, new projects, how projects are developing. It's if you're into it, it's an interesting one. You can see that I do follow it. Right. So benefits. I've kind of covered a lot of them. That compatibility, the scalability, the lower transaction fees in Ethereum, that interoperability, and the fact that it actually does have a very active developing community within that. All positive things to see. In terms of potential some drawbacks, will we really see the demand for it? Yeah, it's great to see that there's 100 projects on there, but we looked at Near Protocol last week. There were 1,000 on that one. So, we've got it. That Near's been around a lot longer. So we've got to give Moonbeam the benefit of the doubt there, but we've got to really see that uptake of use from that. And that's what I want to see for it to get that real potential growth. It is, in my opinion, is going to be very tied to the success of Polkadot. So if anything bad comes about from Polkadot, whatever that may be, whether it be the product, the team, whatever, that's probably going to have a very negative impact on Moonbeam, as the relationship between them is very intertwined. The tokenomics we kind of talked about, the team did hold an awful lot of that, causing that downward pressure. We've still got another year of that significant amount of tokens to be released. 300 million tokens, 30% of the tokens still need to be released in the next 10 months. So that's quite a bit. And that could, despite any bull sentiment, could still drive that price down there. So you just got to be careful about YOLOing in. just thinking about key levels to buy. And then one thing that kept coming up a couple of times, and again, I don't really understand it, but because of the coding that they use, whether that be the substrate framework, I'm not necessarily sure it's the Rust, but it's that Solidity that they use. A lot of Ethereum DeFi projects that have been hacked have been built on the same systems or coding or programming, whatever it is. And so is there a risk that some of these could also be hacked? I don't know, but that's one thing that people are suggesting. However, they've made their bed and lied in what they're building it on. So that's now not going to change. So that's just something that, if that is going to be the case, that Moonbeam and the individual projects are going to have to work to try and counter. But for me, I'm not all in on it, but I am heavily in on it. I will continue to buy regardless of where it is. Where do I see it going? I mean, even back to my all-time highs of $5, which is a 10x from here, that's going to need to be about what? Where are we? Where have I lost? So it's market cap 250. So 10x here would be 2.5 billion in terms of where we are with the current circulating supply. Let's just assume we're at max circulating supply. That's going to actually be around about 5 billion for that to be the case. That's not necessarily unheard of, particularly if we are going to get to sort of that 3 trillion overall market cap size. But yeah, I can personally see it doing that. Let's just say in the next bull run. Some of you may be looking for much bigger gains, but I'd be quite happy with sort of like 13x, 12, 13x, so that would be from this current price.